Why Norman Manley gave Jamaica a colonial constitution. Bustamante hated the Afrocentric image of Rasta. People, a slave is in the head. A slave was hammered and lodged inside. And when we come to clarify this for you, it's because this is not a case behind us. I am talking about the then and even the here and the now. I am talking about a problem our people must fix before even using words like independence. Hey everyone, it's SkyWalker over here. Welcome to my deep diving channel. And you better bring on your tank. We do dive deep. We dive deep over here. If you like the conversation today, remember to give us a thumbs up and a comment if you please. Back to these half-caste brothers, Norman and Busta. Their ingrained culture respected a colonial constitution mirroring the British Empire. It was who they were. It was in their veins, not nappy hair and Afrocentric diatribe. The art of whiting out and returning the half-caste to hold their own people to captivity is thousands of years old. To the half-caste, house slaves, Marcus Garvey was nothing but irritation. And them, the people believed in more than they believed in Marcus. A man with nappy head, big nose, and little privilege. They're gonna believe in the half caste and the white man more. They believe Norman Manley because the children of the enslaved believed in the autonomy of their colonizers and not in themselves, not in their own self empowerment. They said that Marcus Garvey was a mockery, seeing he was one that passed his place. That is what they believed. He passed his place trying to stand toe to toe with a white man. Independence in 1962 was Jamaica's moment to finally step away from colonial rule and establish its own identity while disappointing the British. But it never worked. Here is the uncomfortable truth. The foundation of that independence was a constitution that reflected colonial ideologies more than the people it claimed to liberate. Moreover, it only came after a slave was wedged inside of the black man's head. It was hammered inside with the utmost force. Bustamante and Manley, despite their passion and dedication, left us with a governing framework that mirrored British systems of elitism, bureaucracy, and hierarchy. Why? Well, it wasn't just convenience, it was by design. I mean, it was by design by the British, but for Norman and Busta, it was merely what they knew. It was their culture. They were destined for this even before they were born, and it was not even by their own fault. It was circumstances that were made to be that way, following an ancient pattern of whiting out to rule the world and placing much value and praise on the works of their testicles doing the dirty work, mass grave orgies across continents, and then the children they begrudgingly refer to as bastards. These children they refer to in a byword have been their blessings for so many years, keeping their own people on the other half of their sides to bondage. One half for the white man and one half for the black man. But the elite side is the white man's side, and everyone wants to go elite. They put it down to the power of their testicles, although religious people would rather we call it testaments. But you also know why they worship this thing, and even have represented their phallus on the old Gothic churches as a crowing cock, I mean a rooster. You have seen that, haven't you? And you have seen that tall rod at the top of those buildings representing the phallus. They worship things that they believe had made them so powerful, it seems. When Jamaica transitioned to independence, the British system became the blueprint. It was dressed up as stable governance, but its principles upheld the elitist social structures designed under colonialism. And this is not unique to Jamaica. They did it every single where. Bustamante and Manley were products of colonial education, conditioned to see a British governance as the standard. Their experiences shaped their belief that continuity would ensure stability during the transition. Think of it as redecorating a room instead of rebuilding the house. The colonial constitution gave Jamaica a shiny new coat of independence, but beneath it were the same walls built by the empire itself. Yeah, that was what we were getting for freedom. The constitution perpetuated divisions in Jamaican society, favoring the ruling class and sidelining African centered movements that could have offered a more inclusive vision for the country. It failed to challenge the colonial hierarchy that viewed the darker skinned majority as subordinates rather than equals. It wasn't just politics, it was a continuation of colonial social engineering. Independence was more about inheriting a colonial legacy than breaking free from it. Now, let's talk about how divide and rule tactics were just a colonial strategy. They became part of post independence politics. Bustamante and Manley, despite their leadership and vision, were unwitting participants in a rivalry that mirrored the same divisions the empire had perfected. The JLP and PNP became polarizing forces, splitting the masses and ensuring that unity, a true threat to colonial interests, remained elusive. The rivalry between the JLP and the PNP reinforced the social and political divisions engineered under colonialism. By fostering factionalism, it became easier to maintain power structures that catered to the elite while fragmenting the masses. It's like the colonial powers said, we are leaving, but we'll leave behind a rule book for keeping control. Just make sure everyone's too divided to read it together. And that's exactly what happened. If the people had stopped for once and read together, they would have figured it out, like Marcus Garvey did from the very first glance he took. Bustamante and Manley genuinely wanted progress, but the systems they inherited limited their ability to fully unite the nation. And they're gonna listen to the white man, and they're gonna be putting their trust in the white man because in their mindset and culture, that's where all truth and wisdom comes from. They will listen to the white man to explain to the black man that he is thirsty, that he, the black man, is thirsty, instead of the black man using his own autonomy to think otherwise. Instead of fighting corruption or colonialism together, Jamaica's political system became a chessboard with each leader moving pieces while the empire watched from afar, proud of its handiwork. The tricks are working. These are the harsh realities of social erasure. Colonialism didn't just divide the island politically, it worked to erase the identity of the majority population. The darker skinned masses descended from African slaves were often treated as an afterthought in the narrative of independence. They weren't the ones sitting at the negotiation table or drafting constitutions. They were the ones being governed. by it. The term byword reflects how colonial powers and later neo-colonial systems diminish the identity and voice of the majority population. Leadership post independence became synonymous with lighter skinned elites, individuals groomed to fit the mold that the colonial system found palatable. It's like colonialism handed over leadership with a checklist: light skinned, check; Western educated, check; a comfortable distance from the struggles of the majority, big check; big check. The role of leaders like Bustamante and Manley. While their leadership laid the groundwork for independence, Bustamante and Manley were molded by the very systems that excluded the majority population. And here you have it. They have to have different allegiances because you see, their privilege was on the other side, right? To some degree, they have to be thinking of where their bread and butter comes from. And this is how you place hooks and wedges in a population you conquer. Some of these people, they have our blood inside them, but it doesn't matter because they have the colonial guys' blood inside them too. And which side are they gonna take? Which side will they be compelled to take? They were seen as extensions of the colonial hierarchy, tasked with managing the masses rather than empowering them. Even their genuine care and efforts to address the needs of the people were constrained by their roles as symbols of continuity rather than radical change. Independence was packaged as liberation, but in truth, it was often leadership rebranded with the same colonial paintbrush. Bustamante and Mandy wanted to govern their people, but they couldn't escape the mold they were placed in. In fact, they couldn't escape being the mold. It would have be their nature, their natural inclination would be like to be the mold. While the PNP and JLP rivalry is the most glaring example of divide and rule tactics, it's far from the only one. It's not the only one. These divisions seeped into every layer of Jamaican society, creating fractures in communities and suppressing movements that sought unity and empowerment. The colonial constitution played its part by ensuring that power was centralized among a select few, leaving little room for grassroots or African centered governance. This division wasn't just political, it was cultural, economic, and social, designed to maintain control by preventing unified action. Bustamante and Manley were placed in a paradox. They were leaders of liberation, yet bound by frameworks designed to maintain colonial legacies. Their rivalry became the focal point of politics, further diverting attention from the systemic reforms that were truly needed to empower the majority. They became the faces of independence, but their policies reflected the shadows of colonialism. It's a tough pill to swallow, but it's one we have to acknowledge to move forward. They became the face of something they were destroying. The uncomfortable truth is that the colonial constitution isn't just a relic of the past, it's an active player in Jamaica's present day governance and Jamaica's present day fate. Its framework still influences how power is distributed, who gets represented, and how policy decisions are made. Despite progress, the elitist structures embedded in the Constitution continue to create barriers for grassroots movements and those advocating for inclusivity. Issues like economic inequality, political division, and cultural alienation trace their roots back to the choices made during independence and the decisions that were designed to maintain the colonial legacy. No one listened to Marcus Garvey because his nose was big and he was black. It's like Jamaica moved out of the empire's house but kept the furniture, and you know, generations later, we are still sitting on those colonial sofas wondering why we are not more comfortable. Jamaica's political landscape still reflects the factionalism created by divide and rule tactics. Leaders and parties often find themselves caught in ideological battles that divert attention from systemic reforms that could truly empower the masses. We are still stuck playing the same game the colonizers left behind. Only now the players wear different jerseys. The question is, how do we change the rules to better reflect our identity and priorities? If we want to move beyond the legacy of the colonial constitution, we need bold leadership willing to question the systems we have inherited. We need governance that reflects the full spectrum of Jamaican identity, not just the modes handed down by the empire. Reform isn't easy, but it's essential if we are going to build a Jamaica that truly serves its people. Reforming the Constitution to prioritize equity, inclusivity, and cultural identity is key to breaking free from the remnants of colonialism. Unity across political parties, social classes, and cultural movements must become the foundation of this effort. Independence wasn't just about breaking chains, it was about reshaping the future. It's time to ask ourselves, are we ready to redesign the house, or are we content with painting over the cracks? So, what can we take away from this? Bustamante and Manley were human. They were human navigating a post colonial world where breaking free wasn't as simple as declaring independence. But that's what we thought, huh? We just declare independence and voila. They left us with a constitution that reflected their struggles, their compromises, and the systems they inherited. Today, we must ask, what will we leave behind? What will we leave for our children? Will we continue to live in the shadow of colonial frameworks, or will we be reimagine? Will we reimagine governance to truly serve the Jamaican people? Huh? At the SkyWalker channel, we believe history isn't just about knowing the past, it's about using it to spark change in the present. The worst sign to see these days is a political leader who goes for division instead of unity. This is a redundant colonial trap for us, and we must put out that flame today. Think on these things, my people. Peace out.